this is one of the most eagerly anticipated battles within the hardware category. It's the new Titleist TSR3 driver up against the TaylorMade Stealth Plus. It's titanium versus carbon fibre. Justin Thomas's new driver up against Rory McIlroy's driver. However you want to bill it, it's one of the most exciting tests I've been involved in over a number of years, and we're going to give it a thorough test on the launch monitor on the golf course to see if one outperforms the other. There you go. So I'm sure you're really keen to know exactly what Titleist has done with this new TSR range. As I said, this is the TSR3, so there's 3 models within the range. This one aimed at the slightly lower handicap of the better player. It's more a refinement of what we saw with the TSI and then the TS before that. This is a culmination of the speed project that Titleist has been calling it. And what you'll notice with this driver, it's a little bit smoother on the bottom to make it a bit more aerodynamic. The hosel opening is half the size it was in TSI, so that should help with the aerodynamics. And it's a little bit taller at the back, which again is said to help it be faster through the air when you're swinging it. They've also slightly refined the weight track here at the back, so the track is a little bit narrower, it's less gappy, it's easier to adjust as well. The thread's a little bit shorter, so it's a bit quicker to adjust, and it just looks a little bit cleaner from all angles really. The one thing you won't be able to see is the new variable face thickness pattern. It's called Speed Ring. So Titleist is saying they've adjusted the thickness of the face, the pattern of it behind the hitting area to make it a bit faster from a wider area, essentially making the sweet spot larger. Jury's out on that, obviously you can't see it, but Titleist is saying it should be more consistent. So that's the Titleist TSR3 driver. You compare that with the TaylorMade Stealth Plus. Obviously we know this one is carbon fibre face, we've got the carbon fibre top, so it's constructed very differently, but it does also have movable weight. But interestingly, the weight on the Stealth Plus is obviously at the front of the head, whereas on the Titleist it's at the back of the head. So it'd be interesting to see exactly what effect that has on the ball flight and the overall performance. But before we touch on the performance, let's just compare the looks of the drivers. Obviously TaylorMade Stealth Plus, very cutting edge. TSR3, probably one of the most cutting edge models within the TSR range, but still relatively simple and classic. Down behind the ball, you compare the two at address, and there's no doubt the TSR3 still looks a little bit larger. It's more rounded than the previous versions. TaylorMade Stealth Plus just looks a bit more compact, but they are very different. The Titleist TSR3, very traditional, very classic looking, not bags of alignment assistance. Obviously with the Stealth Plus, you've got that black top with the red face, stands out really well. Arguably a bit more easy to align, but I actually prefer the look of the Titleist TSR3. I think the shape is great. I think it knows what it's trying to be. It's trying to be a very traditional, classic looking driver. And the Stealth Plus is like a kind of modern techie driver that's been toned down, so it's kind of in between, doesn't really know what it wants to be. And the red face is, I'm still not sold on that. So I think that will divide opinions. Some people actually love the red face, whereas I prefer the Titleist. So not much in it. Down behind the ball, but in terms of the sound and feel of these drivers, I'm going to hit one of each with these drivers so you can see or hear the difference, because there is quite a big difference, I would say, in the way these drivers sound and feel. So I'll start with the TSR3 driver. Obviously remember with TS3 it's quite a loud metallic sound, and they've definitely dulled it down since then, and I think this is the culmination of this with this TSR3 driver. Still relatively metallic, but it's got a nice powerful thud to it with a little bit of reverberating pingy sound afterwards. And we'll just compare that to the Stealth Plus, which is slightly different in the way it sounds and feels, I think. Just a slightly different sound, probably a little bit duller, I think, versus the Titleist. Both of these drivers feel really powerful actually. I don't think there's much in it in terms of kind of the feelings you get when you strike one out in the middle. They both feel absolutely sensational. So that's the looks and the sound and feel. For me, the Titleist TSR3 just edges it for looks, whereas the TaylorMade Stealth Plus just edges it for the sound and feel at impact. But let's move on to the all-important performance. Right, so before we get into the numbers on both these drivers, worth just touching on how these two models were set up, because it can have a big impact on the performance overall. So this Titleist TSR3, I was custom fitted at the Performance Centre at Woburn Golf Club. I've got it in 10 degrees in C1, which is down in loft, slightly flatter in the lie angle, and I've got it in this premium upcharge shaft. So this is what I was fitted for, the graphite design UB, which stands for up and beyond. slightly higher launching in X-Flex. So this is the upcharge model. So this driver in total cost a whopping £699, so a lot of money for this custom fitted driver. And then in the Stealth Plus, I've got this in 9 degrees. Both drivers I've got with the weight slightly in the toe to negate my miss to the left, and I've got this in 9 degrees. This is the shaft I was fitted for my Sim 2, which I've just carried over into the Stealth Plus. So not completely custom fitted, but again, it's a shaft that matches with my swing. And if I'll flash up the data on the screen now, I tested both these drivers indoors on the Foresight Sports GC Quad launch monitor. And yeah, there is some big differences between these two drivers. What you'll notice is that I was swinging the Stealth Plus nearly 2 miles an hour faster, which is interesting given I tested this right at the end of my session, so I was actually a bit tired. Still managed to swing it a lot faster through the air, which resulted in faster ball speeds, and with very similar launch and spin, the TaylorMade Stealth Plus driver on launch monitor was carrying around about 6 yards longer on average. So initial findings would suggest Stealth Plus a little bit faster, a little bit through the air, and a little bit longer as a result. But what we're going to do is to put that theory to the test here on the 14th hole at Peterborough Milton Golf Club. It's a tight fairway. Going to hit 5 drives with each, get rid of the worst ones, and see exactly where they finish. So I'm really excited with this one. Let's go and hit some shots. Ah! Oh, mate. Right, so we're back down on the fairway here on the 14th at Peterborough Milton, having hit 5 drives with each of the Titleist TSR3 driver and the TaylorMade Stealth Plus. And as you'll see from where the shots finished, where the performance was quite different between the Stealth Plus and the TSR3 on the launch monitor, it's got a bit more even on the golf course. And based on where the shots finished, it would be fair to say that the TSR3 was giving me more control over direction and more consistency versus the Stealth Plus, which was out of the middle, slightly longer than the Titleist, but just a little bit more wayward overall. I definitely felt like the ball flight with the TSR3 was more stable, whether that's down to the forgiveness of the head or the performance of this premium upcharge shaft. It's hard to tell exactly, but it was definitely a little bit more consistent, a little bit more repeatable, and a bit more stable versus the Stealth Plus, which out of the middle hit really nice high bombs, slightly off center, seemed to curve a little bit more offline, and as a result, there's a couple more shots that finished in the rough versus the Titleist, which was a little bit straighter. So it's really interesting to see how, yes, the launch monitor and probably this testing here on the course shows that the Stealth Plus out of the middle is longer, but arguably getting a bit more forgiveness and control of direction with the Titleist TSR3. So hopefully this test has given you a really clear understanding about the subtle differences in performance between these two drivers. And when it comes to choosing between the two, me personally, I'm a bit on the fence, to be honest. I love the lively feel and the extra distance I was getting from the Stealth Plus from TaylorMade, but then the Titleist TSR3 was giving me a little bit more control over my ball flight. And I think when it comes to choosing between the two, it's probably going to come down to a little bit down to looks in terms of that shape and the profile and the difference in the looks of the drivers at address, but then also the type of course that you play. So if you want a bit more control, maybe the Titleist TSR3 is going to give you that. Stealth Plus is a little bit more, not erratic, but definitely a little bit more wayward, maybe slightly less control over the ball flight off centre, but is a little bit longer out in the middle. So it's a tough one to decide between the two. For me personally, my golf course is very tight, it's not very long, so I'm probably leaning towards the TSR3 just to give me a little bit more control. But you know, if I was to switch to a slightly more open course, potentially put the Stealth Plus in the bag for that extra distance. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Do click the like button if you like what you're watching, and comment down below which one would you choose based on everything we've covered in this video. I'd love to hear from you. But that's all from me from Peterborough Milton Golf Club. I'll see you next time.